All right, let's build some more parts on this guitar. So specifically, let me see here. All right. All right. Um, I think we kind of went over when we last met together, the body of the guitar, this plate, these knobs. Um, but let's see if we can do something with this thing, okay? I believe this is called the bridge. And we did the pickups. They all look the same. So the one that we have should be able to just duplicate that. But this thing's weird, okay? Let me see some other images I have. Here it is again. Okay, this one, it shows the whammy bar included. The last picture didn't have that. And okay, so here's the actual bridge, right? I mean, here's a close-up of what it looks like. And it just looks like overwhelming at first, but you just have to break it down and we can do it. So the main plate here, okay, if I just, let me bounce back to 3ds Max. Let's look at it in this view. So I'm going to hide the plate, right click, hide selection, and the body. All right, so here's the outline of this piece. So I could just draw that and extrude it, right? It's a flat plate, but you'll see that it also comes up here. So I'm going to convert it to an editable poly and then extrude this piece up. All right. And then this whole assembly here, right? If you look at it, see here's this one edge going along here. So if I draw that in the side view and extrude it, you know, left or right, I can create that volume. Really what you want to do is create one whole assembly here and then just duplicate it. The screws, I can just make cylinders with little Boolean out inside parts. Okay, so there'll be a lot of new stuff we'll be learning when we do this. We want to make this as detailed as possible, but do we need the threads on the screw? I don't know. We could make them, but it might really not show in your rendering. So let's leave those off for the time being. So the screw can be a cylinder, and then we'll put the screw head on there. We'll see what that looks like. And then there's a spring, which there's a spline type called helix that we can use for that and just make it renderable. And that should be easy to do there. So yeah. And let me get started by, I guess I'll make the base plate first. All right. So I'm going to go to line, right? And this has curves on it, right? And I'll show you a way to do that maybe will be a little bit easier because I know people have some trouble with the pen tool. Okay, so I'm just going to start here. I'm holding shift down to constrain it. And instead of making that curve, I'm just going to click there. Okay, and I'm going to come back and curve it afterwards. And then close spline, yes. All right, if I go to modify and select, just do this with one vertex at a time, I think. Okay, I don't know if the picture is not exactly straight or what, but we won't worry about if it looks slightly off from the line. And if we go down in our editable spline, we will find fillet, okay? And just go here. You can just type a number in. I have no idea what the number is going to be. What if I type 2? Okay, so that's too big. How about 0.5? Still a little bit too big. Or like it's probably like 0.2 or 0.3 or something like that. Yeah, that's about right, okay? Or when you're in fillet, if you move your cursor over the selected vertex, you can just click and drag until it says, you know, about what you want. looks like about 0.2. I'm just going to type in 0.3. Yeah, I think that's good. Then I'm going to go over here, select this vertex, type in 0.3. And this one, maybe 0.2. It looks a little smaller. Not sure if it really is. Okay, and then turn off that fillet. All right, let's go and extrude this thing. And we'll give a little bit of depth to the extrusion. It can be positive or negative. Maybe like minus 0.1 or something. Let's see what that looks like. I'm going to unhide all for a moment and pull this thing up till it's sitting on top of the plate. It's half on the plate? I guess it is. Looks like, is the plate cut out? Let's go and look at a picture for a minute. Yeah, the plate's cut out. Okay, so, and this thing actually, I drew a little bit too high there. So let's go back and this is a pain. So I'm going to go to line, right? Turn on show end result, go to vertex, and I'm going to move this guy down a hair because I was actually looking, I think I was tracing along this, which was wrong. Oops. Remembering to exit my sub-object mode by clicking on the word line, and then back to extrude. Okay, so let's go to this thing. This isn't the order I planned on doing it in, but whatever. So I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I need to add some more vertices and move this thing up a little bit. Okay, so refine is add vertex, and I'm just going to put one there on either side of this. And I'm just going to actually, let me exit out of that for a moment and hide selection for a minute. Okay, back on this thing. All right, so I'm going to go back into refine and put on 2 more vertices. All right, and then I'm going to go into segment, click on this one and just pull it up. All right, we'll adjust it later. Get out of segment mode. I'm going to right click, unhide all. All right. So let me look at that photo again. Yeah, it's rounded. Okay. So I go down to my line. It doesn't really matter if show end result is on or not, you know, I mean, as long as you kind of know what you're doing. And I'm gonna, now somehow this is a curve segment, and I don't really want that at the moment, so I'm gonna or curve vertex. So I'm gonna right click on that and change it to corner. Okay. And the same thing with this one. Whoops, picture's in the way. Okay, and I guess, let's see, if I turn this one into corner, how's that going to look? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, I'm just going to even this thing up a little bit. They're pretty tight on the sides, I believe. And lift it up a hair on the top. All right, let me try doing 2 of these at once, see how it works. Sometimes when you try to fillet 2 vertices at once, they may have different qualities, which will make them come out different, but let's see. Yeah, they look good. So something like that, right? Then click on the word line to exit the sub-object mode here, up to extrude, and there's that. Okay. Where is it exactly? Here it is. Oh, cool. All right. So we need to put this guy down more or less on the base, right? This thing looks a little high, doesn't it? So probably something like that. All right, so let's see. Hang on a second. All right. So now there's, okay, yeah. So we want this part of this thing to extrude upwards, this part right here. And we probably should do that before we go making all these things. All these parts are pretty easy and don't take very much new stuff, but I think we're gonna have to do a little bit of editable poly here. All right, so I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker, minus 0.2, and move it up a hair. It's kind of chunky. Notice when I move, I'm always putting my cursor right on the head of the gizmo, right? All right, so let's convert this thing to editable poly. All right, it will no longer be a line with an extrude on it. It'll just be a volume, right? And you can edit it by vertex, spline, just kind of like editing a editable spline, but by its sub-objects, not by its parameters. All right. So I'm going to right-click, convert to editable poly. All right. There's 2 similar tool sets here: editable poly and editable mesh. Editable mesh is just an older version that's kind of grandfathered in. Editable poly has the most tools. It's the one you want. Okay. So now you'll see that this thing is no longer a spline that's extruded. It's a basic 3D volume that's made up of vertices, edges, okay, which is a segment between any 2 vertices, border, which is actually not something you'll see very often. It's a edge around an open hole, okay, polygons, and then element, which is if you have a complex object made of multiple elements, that might be an option. But most of the time, what you want is vertex, edge, and polygon. Polygon. All right, so what we need to do is stick a new edge in here, okay, and so we can extrude a piece up. So I'm going to try marqueing like this. Okay, if it's being a little nudgy, like it doesn't want to do it, does like that, but it won't when I marquee. This thing up here gets, this window crossing toggle gets stuck sometimes. So I'm just gonna, okay. All right, so there's my pieces. When I go and do, so I could put what they call an edge loop around here, but since the 2 sides aren't the same height, it's probably going to be crooked. Let's just see what it looks like. If I go to connect, yeah. there's probably nothing I can do here that's going to help it. All right, so yeah, we can do that. Let me hide unselected, so we're only looking at this thing. So I'm in edge mode, right? And you can hit 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 to go to the types. And then you can hit 5 to exit out of the sub-object mode, okay? So I want to be in 2 for edge. And I select and I drag the cross here to select the 2 sides here and the 2 sides here, okay? And if I go to connect, it's going to make a loop, right? A loop between, by default, between the middle of every edge, okay? So connect. And this little thing opens up here. And what I did is I just dragged this slide down to get it closer to this edge. It won't become perfectly spaced until I get to the end due to the fact that these 2 sides are out of whack, but I'm going to just adjust it later. So these 3, so that was the bottom one. This one didn't do anything, okay? And we don't want more edges, right? Because that won't help us any. You just want 1. And as you roll over the little explanation values here, the title in the top will change, telling you what it is. Okay. I was actually going to do a separate thing on polymodeling, kind of in general terms, before I got into this, but this kind of just came up, so let's see how it goes. So I'm going to say check for yes. All right. Now I'm going to go to vertex mode, and I'm just going to select these 2 guys over here on this side, whoops, and drag them down a little bit so it's even. Okay, I marqueed around those 2. Okay, just by eye should be fine. Here I can see on the end if I want to make them line up perfectly. All right, so I'm done with that. So I'm going to exit the sub-object mode by clicking on the word editable poly. And I'm going to go through all this stuff. Usually we don't really do that much editable poly in this class, kind of just as needed. In the spring semester, if you take art for game design, we do basically everything in editable poly. But I'll go through it more than this because I think we're going to need it a bit more for this guitar. But there's a lot of stuff down here, and it all varies depending on which sub-object mode you're in, vertex, edge, or polygon. All right, and you can access them here, or if I click this little arrow thing, there they are there again, vertex, edge, polygon. And to get out of it, you just want to make sure you click on the word editable poly so you're up out of that. Okay, let's extrude this thing up. All right, so I just go to polygon mode. I click on that, right? And I'm going to go to extrude. All right. To keep things simple, instead of opening the interface, maybe I'll just click on the word extrude and click on there and drag. And, it's something like that. And then just click on extrude to get out of it and click on the word editable poly. And we've made this thing. Okay, pretty cool. All right, and you could change the height of that any time by going into vertex mode, selecting these 4 vertices and moving it back and forth. Let's look at that picture again. Okay, so it's rounded here and here. And while we're in here, maybe we can try to do that. Let's see. So I'm going to go to edge mode. And I'm going to click on this edge. And then I'm going to control click on this edge. Remember, control adds to your selection set in Autodesk stuff. And what do I want to do here? let's see if chamfer works for us. We might be able to chamfer that edge. So for this one, I'm going to click on the little, on all these things. If you click on the word, you can do it interactively. And if you click on the little button to the right of it, it opens up an interface. Whoa. So that number is, so 1 is too big. And the number of segments I want. So this is the number of segments and this is the size, right? And, you know, make it a little bit bigger and check. Okay, and then click on the word. All right, we're done with editable poly for a while. Hopefully you survive that. Whew. Okay, right click, unhide all. All right, file, save. Don't forget this part. And also back these things up, okay, as you go through it, because we're going to put a lot of work into this thing. And if you got to start over from scratch, you're not going to be happy. All right, so this thing kind of shows, I guess I'm going to have to kind of wing it here to make this basic shape. Oh, these guys are floating off. Oh, that's, they're not floating off this. Yeah, they are. All right. So let's, and as usual, I unselected. This thing isn't very helpful, but it kind of shows me where they go, so I guess I'll use it. But the main thing is that you have to look at this. So it goes, and I might have to kind of look a few times. So it goes up, down, this way, back and up. And I'm going to try the same thing where I chamfer or the vertices instead of drawing curves, because that might be a little bit easier. All right, let's try it. I'm going to put this picture on my other screen so I can look at it. All right, I'm gonna create this thing as a line, and then I'm gonna, like we did with the vase. Remember when we lathed the vase, and then I'll double up the line. Okay. So anyway, roughly speaking, it's going to be like this, like that, and it goes back down again. Okay, so that's kind of the thing, right? I mean, I guess. Yeah. This thing's not, this thing's kind of like that. All right, so I'm going to select these two vertices and go down to fillet, right? And click on one and drag. Don't let the two that are touching each other, don't let them hit each other. You could get like a twisted spline there. Kind of keep them separate a little bit. But that looks good. And then, so I'm in fillet, right? In vertex mode, in the line. And something like that. All right. Then I'm going to go into segment mode, or I guess that should be spline mode. And it's outline, right? So we go to outline and just click and drag in this thing. You can put numbers in, but it seems like that this is working out pretty well. Oh, look at this baby. Woof. It's going to be so great. And now just go extrude. And let's see what we got. Where the heck is everything? Let me unhide all. So we need to fit in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. Looks like it needs to be a little bit. What if it's, I just put in 1. 1 looks about right. It looks a little tall compared to the picture. All right, because there's a lot of space above and below these things. And if you look here, there isn't so much. So I'm going to go back to my side view. I'm going to hit zoom, selected extents all. And I'm just going to go into my, down into the line and vertex. Turn show end result on. Can't see what I'm going to do. What I'm doing is I'm going to hide unselected. All right, so I'm selecting these vertices. I'm just winging this, okay? I don't, you know, I'm just moving it down somewhat. Okay, all right. Just because I was winging it in the first place and didn't draw it exactly accurately. All right, that seems pretty good. All right, what else do we want to do here? We need to put in the screws and the spring and the 2 little nuts on it. And then we'll group it all together and copy it, all right? In this image here, you can see that they're kind of like different heights, I guess, depending on how it was tuned or something. I don't know, but I don't think we need to do that, or we can do that later. Let's just copy them down so they're even first. It's partly confusing to look at this thing because there's so many reflections and stuff in it. It makes it look a little more complicated than it really is. And we're going to have to do some Booleans here. So in addition to editable poly, Boolean will be another new thing we'll learn while doing this. All right, so let's put a cylinder in for the body of the screw, this right here. And like I said, let's just forget about the threads for the moment. All right, where am I going to do this? What do we got here? I don't really have a top view. This is front. Oh, this is the top view. T for top. All right, so that's what we want. And sometimes it's hard to see what you're doing, and you just kind of have to throw the geometry in there and then move it around and get organized. So I'm going to go to cylinder. We could lathe this whole screw head, but I don't think there's any benefit to that. So I'm just going to, I'll do it over here so I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to drag and then drag down. I have no idea how long I made that. So let's go over here. There it is. And let's look at our parameters on that. We don't need height segment, so I'm going to right click on the spinner to go to one height segment, right? And I'm going to make it a little bit taller. And again, the height can be negative or positive. It doesn't really matter. But it has to go all the way through. It's sticking up, so it shows, right? The top of the screw shows here, but it goes all the way down to intersect with this thing. And then we can just put a screw head on the top later. Whoops. All right, so make the height lower. Move it in like this. Oh, this guy here needs to be trying to get so everything's laying right together, kind of. All right, something like that. Looks a, whoops. Looks a little skinny. So perhaps I will make the radius instead of 0.07, I'll make it 0.1. How about 0.15? 0.13. Okay. Yeah. All right. We can punch a hole in this thing. I think it would probably look kind of bare if we didn't. All right. Again, be sure to save as you go along because we could screw this thing up at any time. All right. So we need to make an object to make this this oblong hole punched out of it in the middle. And then all we got to do is throw in the spring and the 2 screw heads. All right, let's see what kind of shape, if there's something we can find that, so we won't have to do a bunch of extruding and stuff. Not really. Chamfer box. If I draw a chamfer box. I wonder where it is. That will work, I think. All right, so I got a chamfer box, and I'm gonna make it about the right size. So it's kind of like, actually it's not that long. It's right behind it ends right behind the screw head. I'm going to shove this into position here. The fact that this thing has the chamfer box, you could create this an elliptical shape, this shape and extrude it and do the same thing. I was just trying to like cut out a step or two. The fact that it has a rounded face doesn't matter because the part that's going to cut is the middle of it. Let's see. I'm going to decrease the height a little bit. Oops, wrong thing. The length, the width, and the fillet is a little bit too big. All right, that's going to work, and make sure it's, let me just select the objects in play here, hide unselected. All right, so it's this thing here, right? And I'm not going to bother, it looks like the base plate has a circle punched in it. That's probably, we can do that. Let's see if it's even going to show, okay? But that's not part of my object that I'm going to make copies of. And maybe that won't show. It's kind of getting a little dense there. All right, so this thing looks pretty good. I'm going to make one more fillet segment on it, so maybe a couple more. All right, so to do a Boolean, you click on your base object first, right? And then it seems like this should be a modifier, but it's not. So go to create, and instead of standard or extended primitives, you want to go to compound objects. All right, and you'll see that there's 2 mesh types or 2 Boolean types here, pro Boolean and Boolean. Okay, Boolean is the old school one, and pro Boolean is fast, quick, and improved. Except sometimes it just doesn't work, and so you try Boolean, and then sometimes that doesn't work either because Booleans are kind of sketchy on the 3ds Max, to be honest. If either one of those don't work, then you have to figure out something else. There's always a way to figure out something else, but it's it could be just change your two objects till you find out what it doesn't like about them, or try a different way of cutting it or something like that. But anyway, let's hope this works. So let's try pro Boolean first. All right, so when I hit the start picking, I'm going to then go pick my object I want to cut with, right? But I have to make sure it's doing the right thing first. So it's set to subtraction. If yours is on union or something, make sure it's on subtraction. And the default should be good. So start picking. You might want to save your scene before you do this, because you never know. And click on that, and whoopsie-doo. And turn off start picking before you do anything else. Okay, so work great. So unhide all. All right, let's put the head on this. What do we got here? Let's do another Boolean while we're at it. So let's do these two little screws. There's two little screws right here, okay? You can get a copy of this bridge open yourself to look at, of course. So you don't have me moving it back and forth all the time. But I'm just gonna make a cylinder, because again, I'm thinking the threads, I'm just gonna not bother with them, and punch out like I'll make a smooth cylinder and delete a 6-sided cylinder from it. Whoops, kept almost moving my, okay. All right, so to create these things, so go back to standard primitives, make sure you're in the front viewport and it still says front, like you didn't rotate on it, okay? And I'm going to draw a cylinder. And again, you have to kind of you can't always see what you're doing, right? So you just have to make the thing and then adjust it as you need it. So I'm drawing a little cylinder like this, and I just drag, I don't know how much, something like that. Then I go into my right viewport and pull this guy forward. Oh, there he is. Looks like it should be a little fatter. Maybe like that. And the sides are, I have 18 for some reason. I'm going to make it 20. It looks like it needs a few more. All right. So now, instead of going and drawing another cylinder from scratch, to make the Boolean, I'm going to just hold down Shift and drag this one out. Okay. And make sure it's copy, not instance. Okay. It has to be copy. And I'm going to change number size to 6, right? And scale down the radius like that. And push it back in there. I don't know how much. Maybe it goes all the way in. It's an Allen wrench, right? So maybe I'll make it a little bit skinnier. All right, so we do the same thing. I'm going to give this guy more sides, 30, even though it's little, I don't know. So we'll do the same thing. This one here is selected. We go to create, compound objects, pro Boolean, start picking, bada bing. Okay, and then we just copy this thing over, holding Shift. Whew, what a workout. This thing looks a little off center. I think I was too busy blabbing and not paying attention, but you actually can modify these things. Let's see if it'll let me do it. Chamfer box. And let me change the parameters of it. Operands. There, I got it. Okay, you got to fiddle around with stuff sometimes a little bit. Anyway, I'm sure you won't have made yours sloppy like mine was. And let's just Throw the helix on here and the head on this thing. And then I think we'll be able to just duplicate it down. Boy, it's taking a long time. All right, so what view should I do this in? I need to be able to look at it from the top or the bottom to draw that, to draw a cylinder or a helix in that. Sorry, I'm pointing at the thing that's not on the screen. We want to make this guy here, but I have to draw it in the top or the bottom viewport because I draw it like a cylinder. It's going to be oriented towards the viewport I first draw it in. So that is going to be this guy here. And again, I'm just going to make a crappy one first and then adjust it and move it into position. So to get the helix, we go to create and then spline, right? And there's a helix right there. And what I'm going to do is just click and drag to get one radii. There's a radius on either end and then the height. And then you adjust the number of turns, okay? So then I drag, and I think it's doing the height. I can't see what I'm doing. And I'm going to click and drag again. And then I think it's done. So where is it? Okay, there it is. I'll zoom down. Move it over more or less in position. Okay, so I made a crummy little thing, and let's make it better. So we'll go to modify and give it more terms, like, I don't know, 3 terms, say. All right, so there's that. And let's make, before we do anything else, let's turn on rendering, right? That's in our parameters. Enable and render, enable and viewport. Oh my goodness, it's very large. You must be drawing a small guitar. So if the thickness is 1, let's make it 0.1 and see what happens. Okay, how about 0.05? Getting closer. So let's go back into our parameters and increase the height. Let's make it 0.2. 0.3. That's getting there. Move it down into position. So this is a good workout with moving around and manipulating things. So we need to make it fatter, and the radius, both radii are we want them to be the same, right? We don't want to be skinnier or so let's make it 0.2. That looks a little bit bigger. How about 0.15? I mean, it looks a little too big. And then make the second radius 0.15. Adjust the height a little bit. You can kind of hide the end of the spring inside of something as long as it doesn't show anywhere else. All right, that's going to get the message across. These are clockwise. Oh, let's see. Yeah, might as well be anal retentive. Their springs were, what is it? What I have, mine were clockwise and theirs were counterclockwise, the direction that they rotated. But whatever, that truly does not matter. All right, last thing we got to do is put the head on this thing. So since we already have a cylinder here, I'm just going to move it down. Okay. I don't know if this is a screw head or just a nut, but I'm going to pretend it's a nut. So I'm going to give it 6 sides and decrease the height. And increase the radius a little bit. Wow, okay. That's something like that. Now, if you guys want, you can go through and work your way through look at the image and make it differently if you want to. I'm just, this is the easiest way I could think of to make it. Looking at it, this looks a little skinny compared to the picture, but it'll do. All right, so let's group together all of these parts so we can copy them down. Okay, so, but not this, right? So I click on this thing, control click on each object. And group, call it whatever you want. There it is, all right? Now we can make an array to automatically create a bunch of copies or something, but I think we've learned enough new things right at the moment. So I kind of like threw you guys into the deep end of the pool on this a little bit. So I'm just going to hold down Shift, make a copy of that. They have a little bit of space between them. It could be an instance, but let's keep making them copies. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Okay, so I ran out of room. So I'm going to scale them down here. I'm going to just control click on all of them, right? And go to scale up here, right? Now I don't want to scale like this because anything that's a cylinder then becomes, squished. So I'm going to just scale it down uniformly, and it's going to have to be okay. This on this plate, this top face here could be moved out if necessary, but wow, I think that's good for the moment. So let's make sure you save this thing, and I'm going to end this video here.